Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we have an exciting topic for you, deploying Azure Kubernetes Services or AKS on Microsoft Azure. If you're looking to harness the power of containers orchestration for your applications, you are in the right place. Let's dive in. Before we start, let's quickly recap what AKS is. Azure Kubernetes Service is a fully managed Kubernetes service that simplifies the deployment, management, and operation of Kubernetes clusters. AKS simplifies Kubernetes deployment and management, provide automated update, scale, and monitoring. Integrate with Azure ecosystem for seamless integration. Now, before we jump into the deployment, let's ensure you have everything you need. Here is a prerequisite. Azure subscription. Ensure you have an active Azure subscription, Azure CLI, install the Azure command line interface, kubectl, install the Kubernetes command line tool, Azure PowerShell option, but recommended for scripting. Now, let's go ahead and create an AKS cluster. I'll walk you through the steps. Alright, so let's start by going to portal.azure.com. So once you're in your portal.azure.com, what we're going to do is we're going to first of all create the resource group for our Kubernetes services. So to do that, you can either select it from the service, Azure Services tray here, or you can simply search for resource group if it's not showing up on your main page. So once you select the resource group, then you can create a brand new resource group by clicking on the create button, and then you select your subscription and type in your resource group name. So I'm going to name my AKS RG for the resource group, and I'll leave the location in the US East. So this is enough. So I'm just going to click on review and create. And then once validation passed successfully, I'll simply click on create. All right, so we got our resource created successfully. We can easily click on that and we can see our resource here. So what we're going to do from here is we're going to utilize the command line. So to do that, at the very top right, you see this button here, Cloud Shell. Simply click on that one. And let's change from PowerShell to Bash. So I'll just confirm. All right, once we are in Bash, we're going to first of all check our group that we just created, the resource group we just created. So to do that, we can just type in AZ group list. This will list all the resource group that we have, and that will include the resource group that we created as well. So by moving through the list, okay, so this is the resource that I have created here. The resource group is right there. We're going to create a variable for our resource group here. So to do that is quite simple. All you need to do is just type in RG and then equal to, and then specify your resource group name. So in this case, it will be AKS-RG. So just type in AKS-RG. So whatever your resource group name is, you just type it in there. So once it's created, we can call this one by simply typing in echo and then use the $ NRG, and that will give us the name of our resource group. Now that we have that, we're now going to create the AKS cluster. So to do that, let's use the AZ AKS create, and then we use a / to move to the next line without running the command. So now we can carry on with our resource group. And then we specify the variable name. And then we move to the next line to specify the name. So we have to start with the / and then the name. I'll name this one cluster 01. Move to the next line, and then I will set my node count. So I'll set the node count to 3. Next one is generating the SSH key. So to do that, let's just type in generate and then -SSH -keys. And then we move to the next line where we will set the VM size. So we just type in the node -VM -size, and I'll set this one to standard _ B2S. And now we can enable the manage identity. And then press enter. So I'll put this command in the video description. So if you haven't seen this command, do not worry. All this will be in the video description below. So once you click on this, it should now run the command, and this should create our cluster. All right, so the resource has been created successfully. So this took about 5 minutes to complete. So once completed, we can really check this one by going into the Kubernetes services. So if you type in Kubernetes services here and select the Kubernetes service, you should now see the cluster we just created right there. So we now have the cluster. You can click on it to really investigate this cluster. So for example, you can check the namespaces that were created. So we got a few namespaces created, and also you also be seeing some workloads, but we're going to add our own workload in here. So to create our own workload, let's go back into the command line, and we're going to use the Deployment YAML to do this. So to do that, let's create the YAML file. So you're just going to use the touch command and then type in deployment.yaml. So this will create the file, this deployment file right there. So we got that one created. And what I'm going to do as well is that I'm also going to configure the kubectl. To do that, what I'll do is, let me just type in AKS get credentials, and then name cluster 01 and the resource group name. So resource group, and then I'll specify the variable. Okay, so that is done successfully. So now let's just go into the deployment YAML, and then we can put in some code. So I'll put this code into the bottom of this video. So this is actually hosted on my GitHub. So I have the deployment file here. This is the deployment YAML file we're going to use. So what I'll do is, I'll simply copy this code and then go back to Azure, and I'll open my deployment file. So to do that, just simply going to type in code deployment YAML, or you can simply click on this button here to open the editor. So once you type in this will open the editor and go straight into this YAML file. And I'll simply paste what I've copied into here, the code I copied from my GitHub. So I'm just going to go through this code so you know what this code is all about. So essentially, what we're doing here is we're creating a deployment, and we have the replica. So that means we're going to create 2 instances of the ports, and it's going to be named AKS web app. And yeah, so you're going to have a few of the port enabled. So port not port 80 enabled. And yeah, so these are some of the limits that I have in terms of the resources. So once you have it pasted into the deployment.yaml, you can now save it. So I'm just going to save it by clicking the save button here, and I can simply type in the name again and then save, and we can close this one down. So I'm just going to close down the editor, and then we're going to use the kubectl apply to run this deployment YAML. So to do that, just simply type in kubectl, and then I'll type in apply, and I'll use the force command, and I'll just type in that. All right, so deployment have been created successfully. To see that, we can also use the kubectl, and then we get deployment. And that will list that there are 2 ready, and we can check the 2 ports that were created from this by also typing in kubectl and then get ports, and I'll give it a list of the 2 ports running, and all of them are running state. Once you have this one created, this will also show up in your workload location. So going back into the graphical interface, just refresh on this page here under the workload. Make sure the workload section is selected, and then refresh, and you should now see the new workload here. You can click on it to also see the various running ports. So you can see those 2 ports are also in a running state, and they have their IP addresses, but these are not accessible outside your outside in terms of external access. But for us to be able to access it using our browser anywhere in the world, because the whole point of running these pods or these container is to give our services access to the internet. So we're going to deploy Nginx onto this service. So as you can see from this deployment, we have the image of Nginx that was deployed onto it. So we need to now have access to it, and we've also opened up port 80 HTTP, but we do not have an external address. To do that in Kubernetes, we need a service to do this, to allow the external access. So we can use that one to create what we call the load balancer. So let's just do that. So to do that, I have the file here as well. So I have the service.yaml, which you can copy. So I'm just going to copy this one here. So what this is going to do is that it's going to give the new created application, which is the AKS web app, access on port 80. So you create a load balancer service so that we can get a public facing IP address, which you can access anywhere in the world. So copy that code, and then once you are back on the bash shell, what we're going to do is, I'm just going to push this one up a bit. All right, I'm just trying to push this one. All right, here we go. All right, I'm just going to make it big. All right, here we go. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm just going to create a file, a service.yaml file. So to do that, just type in touch again, and this time I can type in service.yaml. And I'm going to open this file now. So just use the code command, open the file, paste the code I copied from GitHub, and then I can save this. So I'm just going to quickly click on the save button. That is saved, and I can close this file down. So once you close it down, we can now use a kubectl apply to run this. So I'm using the force, and then there you go. So that is created successfully. So now we can use the kubectl and then get service to see the service. There you go. So as you can see, we now have an external IP address which we can use to access our resources. So you can also see the same IP address when you navigate to this session here. So if you go back to the cluster and then go to the service and ingress. So once you click it, you should now see the new service you created here as well, and it'll have the external IP address we saw in the command line. So once you click on this will now open up that specific IP addresses, and voila, we now have access to our Nginx service, and this will be accessible anywhere in the world. So this is nice and short video which showed you how you can deploy Kubernetes, and then using the deployment YAML and also using services, you can now have access to your resources anywhere in the world. So I hope this video helped you out to get yourself and to use Kubernetes. And if this is the first time you are here in this channel, please do well to subscribe and hit the like button. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.